Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over our first tropical update of the season. This is going to be my first video where it's completely dedicated to the tropical storms. So it's definitely a very exciting video for me because it definitely gets the hurricane season going and I'm getting back into the swing of things with the hurricane graphics and all of that. I'll be introducing more and more graphics as we go through the summer season and as we go through the hurricane season. Over the next couple of months I'm going to be showcasing some rip current forecast, also wave height forecast, rainfall forecast, track forecasts, intensity forecast. All of that will be happening over the next couple of months on my channel. So hopefully you guys are also as excited as I am for the hurricane season. We have two storms to deal with: Invest 91L, which is down in the Gulf of Mexico, and Invest 90L, which is up near Bermuda, 450 miles northeast of Bermuda. Both of those have the threat of becoming tropical storms, and we're going to talk about all of that and more in today's video. We're going to have a lot of information to go through in today's video. So here's what the current National Weather Service page looks like. We have a few red flag warnings and wind advisories in parts of the southwest, as well as some winter weather advisories in southwestern Colorado. We have flood watches in parts of Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, and Oklahoma, as well as some red flag warnings also in western Florida. And I believe those are dense fog advisories in effect for parts of the Ohio Valley and also into parts of the interior northeast as well. Yesterday we had a high temperature in Rio Grande Village, Texas, where they got up to 105 degrees Fahrenheit. The low temperature was in Crater Lake, Oregon, where they got down to 21 degrees Fahrenheit, and that was also tied with Calumet Butte, Oregon, where they also got down to 21 degrees Fahrenheit. The highest rainfall report was in northwest Corpus Christi, Texas, where they got 4.5 inches of rain, and 16 inches of snow was reported 15 miles southwest of Dupuyor, Montana, there where they had a ton of snow, and we actually have a few new reports that are up close to 18 inches in parts of northwestern Montana. So they really got hammered with quite a bit of snow over the past couple of days. Here's a look at the satellite imagery for our first storm, which we're going to be talking about, and that is going to be Invest 90L, which is located again 450 miles northeast, around 450 miles northeast of Bermuda. It's right there, and you can see that circulation, which you're starting to see pop up on the screen, on the southern part of this storm. So you have a little bit of dry air coming in on the eastern side of this, and then you have all that warm, moist air coming in from the north, and then kind of ramping back around on the bottom end of this. So that's how that storm is playing out. We do have a fairly high wind shear environment to the east of this and also to the west of this. So we have high wind shear on either side of this, which could break this storm apart. But what looks to happen is that it's going to pretty much go right in between the two areas of high wind shear and just kind of circle around to the northeast, somewhat like that. So if we look at what the National Hurricane Center shows for their 2-day outlook, you can see here's where it is. Bermuda is right down here. So that is where that's the main area of concern if it does move closer to Bermuda, but it does look like this is going to stay completely to the north of it and then swing up to the northeast. If you do live in Bermuda or you're just interested, I do have the NHC discussion, the National Hurricane Center discussion, on the right hand side of the screen. I'm not going to read it out, but you can definitely pause the video right here and read that for yourself, or if you want to go to the National Hurricane Center's website, you can also read it on their website. Here is the 5-day outlook. You can see we have a 90% chance of development. The X is where it currently is sitting. It's expected to again move a little bit further to the south and then curve right back up to the northeast. So Bermuda's gonna really dodge a bullet here. They're gonna come very close to the storm, and then it's gonna completely take a 180 turn to the north. So you guys are looking good if you live in Bermuda. Not a whole lot to worry about with this storm. This looks to be mainly just out to sea. It won't even clip parts of the Maritimes in Canada, so it's going to be well east of there. It's going to be north of Bermuda. Really not a big deal here. The bigger deal is going to be down in the western Gulf of Mexico, closer to Texas and Louisiana, where we have our next storm developing, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit as well. So here's some of the information on this current storm. It's located at 25.7 degrees north by 58.5 degrees west. Minimum pressure that was found was 1,008 millibars. Maximum sustained winds of 50 knots, gusting up to 60 knots. and that's around a sustained wind of about 60 miles per hour, gusting to about 65 or 70. So it is fairly robust. You would still need a couple more aspects of this to come together. It still looks extra tropical. That's what they were saying in the discussion. So even though you might have the winds to consider this a tropical storm, not really the characteristics to consider it a tropical storm, because we don't have that defined look on the radar. It still looks a little bit disorganized. I don't know what they're going to do in the 2 p.m. update, the 2 p.m. Eastern update. They might actually put that up to a tropical storm by that point. We'll still have to see, based on current radar data and all of that, and all the satellite imagery as well. I think the more, if this gets more organized over the next couple of hours, that could definitely update this into a tropical storm by 2 o'clock today when they come up with the updated announcement. So here's what the forecast track is. Here's Bermuda in the very bottom left-hand corner. So you can see how it's coming in from the west. It's going to move southwestward and then make a drastic change to the northeast and then move out to the east. We're not going to see any impacts if you live in southeastern Canada, so you guys are okay. No issues with this, because sometimes they do actually get clipped with these tropical storms and hurricanes. So you guys are looking good. Bermuda looks good. Really not a lot to worry about with this particular storm. If we look at the, I believe this is the GFS guidance, you can see that we have the same story. So Bermuda's down here, and you can see how it goes pretty much straight to the west, and then it makes that drastic curve to the northeastward. So that's to the northeast, which is generally what we've been seeing here. And if we look at the European ensemble model guidance, pretty much exactly the same as what the GFS ensemble model guidance is showing and what the other ensemble models are showing as well. Here would be the intensity guidance. You can see it's right around a mid-tropical storm, so it is fairly high there in terms of its wind speed, and that's not one of the reasons that this is still not a tropical storm. It's not like it's struggling to get to 30 or 34 knots. It's well above that mark, but what we're not seeing, again, is on the satellite, it's not as well organized as we would need it to be. It does look, however, that it is going to stay as a tropical storm probably through the next 5 days, maybe even to the next week or so. So it's going to be long-lasting before it does move into an area of sheer and colder sea surface temperatures that could inhibit the development of the storm. If we look at our next storm, which I think a lot more of you guys are going to be interested in because it's coming closer to the U.S. and it's coming closer to land, this is Invest 91L. So you can see it right here. Over here, you can actually see a bit of that rotation. We have that dry slot coming in on the east side of this and also wrapping in on the northern side. We have a lot more of the energy and a lot more action on the southern end of this storm right here. So that's where most of the highest, or where the highest winds and also the most rainfall is occurring right now. This is going to be quickly moving to the northeast, and this, or actually to the northwest. This is not going to be a good situation because even though it's not going to be really the biggest deal in terms of, okay, maybe you get some winds gusting to 40 or 50 miles per hour at times, it looks like it'll be actually lower than that, but the bigger issue is that, if you remember just from a couple of videos ago, we were talking about, actually I think in yesterday's video, that this area right here was hit with almost 10 to 20 inches of rainfall over the past 7 days. So you guys got a lot of rainfall in this area, and adding on maybe, even if it's just another 2 or 3 inches, is going to be quite bad. So it's not going to be the greatest of situations here. Hopefully hopefully we have a couple more days to actually prepare for this. We have a few more hours so that we can actually get some of that water off the roads and kind of drain that out before our next wave of rain actually ensues in parts of Louisiana and southern Texas. So here's the 5-day outlook, and you can see that we have that 40% risk in parts of the western Gulf of Mexico. You can see how it's angled into parts of coastal Texas. Here is what the current status of this is. You can see that it's located at 25.4 degrees north by 93.6 degrees west. Minimum pressure 1,010 millibars, and it has maximum wind of 25 knots, gusting to 35. So this is not as intense as the previous one. Again, the biggest issue with this one is mainly just going to be the rain, because we really don't need any more rain in these areas along the Gulf Coast. You guys have already been hammered with quite a lot of rainfall. You can can see it's pretty much it's pretty much horizontal with the southernmost part of Texas. If you were to draw a line to the east, you would pretty much match up with that storm, and it's gonna again continue to move further northwestward over the next couple of hours or over the next couple of days. Here would be the track of this, and you can see it's expected to move northwestward, then it'll head into Oklahoma, and then through parts of the the central and northern plains. But by that point, it'll be just a very weak extratropical storm, pretty much just like any other rainstorm. So not going to be too big of an issue in many of those areas. It's actually going to help bring in a little bit of severe weather into some of these areas in the Great Lakes. So really interesting how that happens. We're dealing with a tropical storm that's eventually going to move into the central plains and then move into the Great Lakes and potentially become extratropical, and by that point become some sort of a severe weather maker. So really interesting how this is expected to play out. This is going to be making landfall within the next 24 hours. So you only have about 18 to 24 hours before this is going to be heading onto the coast of Texas. If we look at what the European ensemble model guidance is on this model, or on this storm, you can see that it's expected to go right into parts of southern Texas. Now, the European ensemble model guidance does not go far enough out, so we don't actually see the rest of this. It just is starting to render in, so we're not really able to see exactly what is expected from this model. If you look at the intensity, I do think this will actually become a tropical storm, and I think it is going to be very close. But the reason I think that is because we saw yesterday that the storm out near Bermuda went up maybe 20 knots within just a few hours. So we were looking at initial guidance where it was like, okay, maybe this will turn into a tropical storm. It was right around 34-35 knots at the peak of the storm based on some of the intensity guidance. Now we're dealing with pretty much the same exact thing here, and I think we could potentially push over 34 knots, which is a threshold for tropical storms, maybe get closer to 40 knots. I don't think it's going to be any monster storm, but I do think that you do have that threat of maybe this ramping up. Well, that's generally been the trend so far this hurricane season, even though it's been a very short one so far, is that they've trended stronger than what we're actually expecting early on. So I think that is something that you want to watch out for. Just continue to watch the models, because there is somewhat of a trend here where we keep on seeing these becoming a little bit more intense than what we were initially expecting. Here's the forecasted track on the European model. So you can see here's your storm right here. That's the center of it. And this would be by right around now. So this is around 2 p.m. Or actually 3 p.m. Central Time today. And you can see we have that storm up into parts of the western Gulf of Mexico. If we go to tomorrow, very early in the morning, it becomes a much weaker in many of these areas. So it's going to go into parts of northern Texas. It'll weaken quite a lot as it goes onshore. If it is going to strengthen to a tropical storm, it has to do it quickly, because we only have a couple hundred miles between the storm and the coast of Texas, so it's going to need to really warm up fast here. We have fairly warm sea surface temperatures in the western Gulf of Mexico, so that should help it out a little bit. And then if we go through the early afternoon on Saturday, it's up here. You might be seeing this out in the western Gulf of Mexico. That's just another area of disturbance, but that's not going to be anything that's expected to become tropical. Here is what the actual rainfall totals are, and you can see that we're expecting potentially another 3 to 5 inches of rainfall in western Louisiana. Really the same exact area that was hit with the heaviest of rain. It would be a little bit better if it kind of went into southernmost Texas, where they actually have a little bit of drought still persisting, but unfortunately it just continues to hammer into eastern Texas, western Louisiana, an area that is already seeing a lot of rainfall. So we really don't need any more rain in these areas. And by the way, here's the chances according to the European ensemble models that we hit tropical depression wind speeds of 20 knots or more. You can see very high likelihood over the next 72 hours that in parts of coastal Texas and the western Gulf of Mexico we hit those tropical depression force winds. And then also out north of Bermuda, a very high likelihood, since we are already above 20 knots, that we do continue and sustain that tropical depression force winds or higher. So definitely a very interesting type of pattern that we see. We're dealing with tropical storms, a colder and snowier pattern out in the west, a much warmer pattern in the east, severe storms in the northern and central United States. So really all over the place with this pattern. I'm going to try my best to keep up with it and update you guys with this. I'm probably going to make a couple more videos on these tropical storms depending on what exactly happens, and then I'll probably shift my focus over to the severe weather in the Central Plains and the Great Lakes. If you have any suggestions over my thumbnails, if you want me to change anything with the design of my thumbnails, if you want me to change anything with the format of my videos, definitely tell me now, because we're just getting into the hurricane season, and it would be really beneficial if you guys tell me now instead of 5 months into hurricane season, so I could switch it now and get to a design that you guys like or a format that you guys like a little bit more earlier instead of doing it later on in the season. So if you have any suggestions or comments, leave them down below. If you have any questions, also leave it down below. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and also sharing this with your friends and family. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.